really grateful.
MDN TV, the podcast. Be abreast with now. Never miss a thing with MDN TV, the podcast. We love to keep you in the present with diverse goodies from secular and non-secular subjects of global interest. Join us. Grab more from these series. Listen to our podcasts. The undeniable choice.
It's sundown. The day has just begun. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Yes. This is MDN Shows Running with the Times, only on MDN TV, the podcast. And I am Major Daughter. Welcome to all our listeners and viewers around the world. Meet us in the comments. We are live there. Engage, ask questions, share this podcast, tell your friends to tell their friends. Is happening right now. And we want to say thanks a gazillion times to you for coming back again and again and again. And it doesn't really matter whether you spend 10 minutes with us or 15 minutes with us or 5 minutes. All that time is highly appreciated. And if you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Because this is the hottest show on the planet. And we bring you one of the hottest guests on the planet. And today, tell you what, we are looking at a journey of a hero. My guest moved from the depths of despair to the heights of bliss. And he will tell us about his journey of healing and personal growth and how everything changed just like that. And if you know anyone who could receive from what is going to be shared here today, tell them to jump in right after this.
MDN TV, the podcast. Be abreast with now. Never miss a thing with MDN TV, the podcast. We love to keep you in the present with diverse goodies from secular and non-secular subjects of global interest. Join us. Grab more from these series. Listen to our podcasts. The undeniable choice.
Well, the undeniable choice indeed for today is Rodolfo D. Angeli'S. Thanks a gazillion times, Rodolfo, for saying yes, for availing yourself, and for sharing yourself with the world. We are so honored. Now, you moved from the depths of despair to the heights of bliss. How does that happen? What happened the minute before you attempted suicide that changed everything? Rodolfo, the mic sings to you. Greet our viewers and jump into it.
Major Daughter, thank you so much, first of all, to have me on your show. I mean, honestly, I am in awe just listening to the intro. Now, I've been on many podcasts before, and I have a podcast myself, but this is now the next level. The production, the whole, the enthusiasm behind your show, yourself, what you bring to your guests and to the world is absolutely amazing. And to be a part of it is humbling. And feeling really, really grateful. So I really appreciate you for all you do. And honestly, I was like, oh my God, is that me going on now after this? It's like,
yes. Thank you.
This is too much, But yeah, anyhow, really, really grateful. First time in my life, actually, that I'm speaking to an audience, South Africa. Oh my God. Honestly, 12 years ago.
Yes.
I would have never thought in a million years, 12 years ago, looking at a rope inside my garage, that I would ever speak to anybody, let alone, to you today in your audience and reaching people, hopefully touching people in your beautiful and such colorful and cultureful and powerful and amazing continent and country. So to go back to your...
It's possible. All things are possible. And I tell you...
that is beautiful. And I'll be happy to share. My story started 53 years ago. And I'm be 54 this year, so it's been a long journey to here. But I'm not gonna go too far back, even though the story really happened. That started back then. As a little boy, I was given away. My mother didn't want me, and I guess she decided to give me to foster parents, and I grew up until 11 years old with foster parents. And so I didn't know, I had a clue who my parents were because they would sometimes come and visit me. But it wasn't a normal relationship, son and parents, right? I was away and didn't understand really why. I didn't know why my parents couldn't love me, and didn't know why I was the only person, only kid that the parents wouldn't come to school and come and speak with the teachers like everybody else. And so, but anyhow, at 11, I was picked up by my parents. They wanted me back, and it was a very rocky situation because I didn't know who they were. So it was very hard for me to connect with them, and I didn't know what was happening from there on. From there, I was sexually abused by a family member. And the story kind of evolved from there, trying to find a father figure, trying to find a
Yes.
mentor, a leader, which is very important. As children, we need leaders. We need someone who shows us the way because we don't know, right? um, Unfortunately, that didn't happen, or it happened in a way that didn't serve me very much. And eventually I moved out from home at 19. I got married very young, and the marriage didn't work out. And I was 24 years old, and I didn't really know what life was about at that point because my parents didn't want me. My now wife didn't want me. There was so many questions that I just could not answer. From there, I kind of changed my approach. I was a people pleaser. I learned to people please from a very young age, to be loved and be accepted and feel that I mattered in some way. But then at that moment, after the split with my ex-wife, I kind of turned the page, and I became very radical, very, very hard, and started to do crazy things to be seen, still for the purpose of being seen, but being nice or pretending to be nice didn't work. So I thought, okay, let me
Yes.
just be bad, and maybe that will work. But that got me
Hmm.
into prison, and so I was put away for a little bit. And so I came to a point in my life in 2003, after meeting who now is my wife in 2001 in a very random way. But then in 2003, I thought, okay, I'm going to go to Australia. I will leave Europe. I was living in Switzerland. I'm from Italy, but I was living in Switzerland back then. And I moved to Australia, to Melbourne, where I am today. And I thought, um, Major Daughter, I thought I could leave my past behind. I could just leave everything behind and just start
Yes.
fresh, go in a
Yes.
new country and get a second chance. But life doesn't work that way. We cannot escape. We cannot just, open a door, go through it, and everything is left in the other room. Life will come with us. Those parts of us, the trauma, the pain, all of the things that happens, they are part of us, and they will come with us. And until we put them to rest, until we grow above them, until we can understand the beauty, even in the trauma, the beauty, even in the shadows, it will not let us go. And so from that moment on, the first year in Australia was amazing, by the way, because I was in a new country, everything was new. Um,
Yes.
but a year later, I felt life bringing me the bill. I always use this metaphor. It's like
Hmm.
when you go in a beautiful restaurant, right? You have a nice meal, and you have a party, and you have drinks, and you have dessert and everything. And at the end, you can't get away from the table, right? The waiter is going to bring you a bill for all of this, right?
Yes.
Um,
Hmm.
and I felt that happen to me. The bill that life gave me. Okay, you wanted to escape. Hang on, before you go, let me just give you this because you're gonna pay up. For me, that was very confronting, and I was scared as well because I didn't know how, and also I didn't believe that all of that would have come with me right on the other side of the world.
And
And
actually,
so,
now that you mention that, if I could just come in, I tell people that most of the times we tend to move the problem and not solve the
Mm,
problem. So when you moved
right.
from Australia, you simply moved all the problems along with you without confronting them, without solving them. And this happens every time and again. Your parents moved the problem when there was that rejection, and they didn't want you, and they didn't really know what they were dealing with. They just moved you to foster care. They didn't address the underlying cause and root cause of what led to the kinds of reduction that was there. Same with marriages, right? With your marriage, your wife didn't want you. You were just moved there. So you kept on moving from one place to the other, and you were moved. So you also got to that place of just moving along. Then you moved to a new country, but you now discover that, okay, everything has followed me here because you didn't solve anything. You just moved it. Rodolfo?
Absolutely 100% right. And later on in my life, I read a book by Seneca, which is probably my favorite book today. It's called On the Shortness of Life. And there's a passage in that book by Seneca that says, no matter under what sky you travel, you always travel with yourself. And I wished I knew that earlier so I could address the things that were painful, the things that have affected my life, and all of that. But I only were able to discover it a little bit later. But as we say, better late than never, right? So after after this whole, after life knocking at my door, letting me know that nothing changed really, um, I fell into a depression, into an anxiety, and yeah, the next 6 years from there were absolutely terror. Me trying to flee, me trying to not listen, me trying to not look, right? Trying the next thing, something to just distract me, and until 2010, only 12 and a little years ago, finding myself in my garage, thinking of ending my life because I didn't know anymore what to do. And so, to your question, what happened the minute before, right? What happened? What
Maybe
you know,
before you even answer that question, now that you have said so much, look, there's so many of us, and there's so many people really going through a lot right now, especially since
mhm,
after the pandemic, we've seen so
yeah.
many suicides around. If you could tell us what really pushed you over the edge, what, when that bill came on the table to say you've not paid for this, you've got to pay here. What pushes you into that garage now?
It's so many things. I was in my 30s, you know what I mean, and I felt like I never had a break, until that moment, and I honestly didn't know how to get one. And so there was a moment, I guess, the moment that what I have learned, and what I have learned working with people now, as well, I've learned that there's a moment where it feels like death is less painful than living. It's that moment where we have that false belief, people who get to that point, we believe that doing that act, even though it's a terrible act, and the people that are left behind are left to deal with that, we believe that that moment is less painful than keep living, um, and so for me, what changed is a very, very funny thing, because I was waiting for the moment for me to act. And I remember I was sitting on the floor looking um, ahead of me. But then there was a moment where I felt, okay, this is the moment for me to, farewell. And so I turned around and I looked through a window that was behind me. And there was a window that you could see from the inside out, but you couldn't see from the outside in, because it was kind of like a mirror. And on the other side was my wife. And she was in our lounge room. I was in the garage. She was in the lounge room. She was watching TV. And at one moment, exactly at that moment, I turned around to, maybe I just wanted to say goodbye. She burst out laughing, like she was watching TV. Something must have been super funny, and she literally burst out laughing. And that's when a voice came into my head, or maybe the voice came into my soul. And the voice said, there has to be more to life than misery.
Mm.
There has to be more to life than misery, because I was in a place where I was about to end my life, and my wife, just 5 meters away, was having the time of her life. And so for me, something was put in my soul that said, your next part of the journey is to find the missing link, because there
Mm.
has to be more to life than misery. And so that is what happened the minute before. And from there, it started a journey that is now, 12 and a half years long, that has gotten me all around the world looking for the answers at the beginning, but then having found something that really was the missing link. And it's quite ironic. I'm speaking with you from South Africa. South Africa is a very powerful continent, and traditions, and shamanic practices, and so on and so forth. And even though I tried the modern approach of, coaching and all of that kind of stuff, which, by the way, worked for a little bit of time, probably for about a year and a half, my business took off. We like had 7-figure business, 40 people working. We like really, really successful. And I felt really, really good. And I
Mm.
felt I did some healing with my coach and so on and so forth. But after a year and a half, my anxiety started to come back. And it actually came back even stronger. And I remember asking my coach to help me. It's like, you helped me before, help me again, because I'm going backwards very, very quickly. And I'm actually starting to sabotage my business and everything. And I remember that after trying a few times, she couldn't. She had no answers. And there was a moment I realized, okay, the modern approach can get you to the outer journey. They can get you to achieve that perhaps dream or whatever that you have out there. But you need to go on an inner journey. It's the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is here. And obviously, she couldn't help me. And so I traveled, and I heard a podcast actually that someone was talking about shamanism. And the moment when you hear something and you know exactly that is the message is for you?
Mm.
That's exactly what happened. I was driving to work, and I was listening to this podcast. And when the man was sharing his story, I knew in my soul, this is my missing link. I need to do that. And that journey, Major Daughter, was incredibly powerful, terrifying most of the time, because the practices, the ancient ways, right?
What is
They bring you.
shamanism? Someone may be thinking, what is shamanism? Those who don't know, if you could first explain what that is, and then take us through how you discovered this ancient shamanic practice that transformed your life. You're listening to a
Well,
podcast and you're
discovered I
hearing it.
discovered
Yeah.
Yes, through a podcast, right? The man was explaining his journey that he went on. So a shaman is actually original. The original name started in Mongolia, on the northern part of Mongolia. Shaman is a healer, right? Is a healer. Is a person who is able to communicate with the other side. And it's a very, very ancient. Africa has some incredible shamanic practices, very powerful.
Mm.
But so does South America. Actually, in ancient times, all countries had their shamans. Australia, obviously, with the Aborigines, but everywhere, every place in the world had shamans. Those were the healers, the people that could, you know, help people go into a place where it's not surface, but it's very much lower into the soul. And so my practice brought me, or my the message I heard on that podcast that my practice was in South America. And so after starting here with the local shaman, I eventually flew to South America to meet a new teacher, a new person who could help me further. And that was really the missing link for me, because then I could use the outer journey in modern ways to go after my dreams, to create practices and strategies, to get yourself moving. But I also found the ancient ways, the ways of our ancestors, that everything slows down. You got to sit down, you got to listen, right? It's like what you said earlier, you can't run away. You got to take charge of all of that. And that practice did that for me. And so what I learned over the years is to combine the two practices together. And this is what I do today with people. I bring them on two simultaneous journeys: the outer journey of achievement, the inner journey of self discovery, the reconnection to the self, and the healing path, the growing path that is within ourselves. So, most of the time, for most people, the outer journey, the goal that people want to go and achieve, is often there to fill a void, to feel something missing, right? And they believe that by achieving that thing, they will feel that happiness or that fulfillment that they are so much craving for, yet it's only there to fill a void. And so they arrive to the place, they buy the new car, the new house, the promotion at work, or to start a business, or whatever it all is, get $1 million, whatever. But the feeling then after a day or a week or a month dissipates, it goes. And then they have to chase the next thing. It becomes like an addiction. That's why we have a world that everybody's spinning their wheel constantly, never getting nowhere. Yet when we get into ourselves, we go into our inner journey. Now we find who we are. Now we heal. Now we grow. And now the goal that we want to go after changes, because now we do not need the goal to fill a void, but now the goal represents who we are becoming as a human. And that is a really beautiful way of living, because now we're in balance, and that is what worked for me, what helped me transform my life, heal, be able to, go on and feel that bliss that I talk about, and don't get me wrong, life is full of challenges, right? It's not,
Yes.
this is not the magic pill that now everything is going to be always fine and all the problem are going to get out of my way. That's not the case at all. There's fictitious thinking. But what it happened though is that you see the things that happen for you in a complete different way. You see them as a new way for you to grow and to learn and, to be humble, to stay humble, because life is very powerful. What God or creator or spirit or whatever someone believes in, something much bigger than us, has a bigger plan. And so, to fulfill that plan, to live in our truth, there will be challenges that we will need to go through, right? Nothing is just given to us, right? And
Yes.
so that's the journey, right? That's the journey of 54 years, but also a journey of the last 12 years that not only has helped me now, but many, many, many people all around the world that I'm called to serve and blessed to serve, but also my wife. My wife was diagnosed with cancer 4 years ago, and she decided to go on a similar journey using the similar practice, because
Mm.
we always said, if we believe in this so much, then if it works for me, it has to work for everybody, right? And so she went on her own journey, her individual journey, outer journey, inner journey, and was able to cure that cancer, and didn't do much medication at all, didn't do chemo, didn't do radiation, didn't do nothing. It was a blessing, right?
Inner journey, outer
And
journey. How does that even look like? Would you care to explain? And how has practitioner helped you to connect with others, including your wife, because you say she was diagnosed with cancer and she also went through shamanism practice, and that really facilitated her growth and healing. Tell us about that experience. You talk about outer journey, well, outer journey, inner journey, or something like that. Explain that a little. You may have to break it down because some people don't know what you're talking about. And we want to be sure we are getting that right. How did she also now employ the same practice of shamanism, Rodolfo?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, shamanism is a practice that is the practice we use is at 3,500 years old, very ancient. And the moment you enter this ceremony, because it is pretty much a ritual that, depending on what tradition you follow, for the ones that we have used in our life and what I practice today, is can be between 10 and 14 years old, 10 and 14 hours long. Okay. And the
Okay.
way that works is usually it's done either during the night or during the day. And you drink a medicine. Okay. It's called a medicine. And it's derived by a plant that grows, in the end is in Peru, grows at 4,500 meters altitude,
Yes.
5,000-meter altitude. And it's a brew that you drink. And that brew allows you to go into part of yourself that otherwise you wouldn't be able to go. It's a very challenging journey because you are presented with who you are. You can't escape that, right? You can't say I don't want to see this. It will be presented to you not as a way of punishment, but as a way of realization, self-realization.
So
Where are my
after
responsibilities? Mhm.
so after drinking the medicine, you sort of go into a sleeping mode, or does it take you
No,
to a trance? What does the
no.
medication do? Is it yes?
Okay. So what that medicine done called Wachuma, the medicine is called Wachuma, and what it does, first of all, it opens you up, like in a matter of energetically open, so you really feel you are connected to more than yourself, right? Because oftentimes we believe we are the unique species and the world is running around us, right? But
Yes.
what that medicine does is allow you to feel that you are part of something much bigger than yourself. It also teaches you self-love, so much as love for the other person or perhaps the earth, right? And this might sound all very, you know, woo-woo kind of way, right? Yet the moment we get out of ourselves is the way we can get back home. Okay. But in the same token, this ceremony has different stages as well. There's a stage of opening, there's a stage of self-reflection, there's a stage of observing. And you're not in trance, you are pretty much here. And I could literally, you and I could have the same conversation as we have now, only that we are coming from a complete different frequency, right? We are way more open to it all. We are way more aware to everything. But also we are aware to see who we really are. How did I get here? What really happened in my life? You know, you can really see what life has been about. For me, the trauma, you know, the abandonment and all of those things, I was able to see those things in a complete different light. Okay. And and you know, often people try to forgive everybody else, right? Try to forgive, but we forget to forgive ourselves first, right? Because at the end of the day, we put ourselves through so much pain, even though life sometimes might have been really hard for us, right? I mean, we all have challenges. For me, it was my challenge, but you might have yours, and everybody has their own, right? And so at the end of the day, we got to be able to embrace those challenges. Most of the time, people don't want that. They would just push it away. Just they want to get rid of that. They don't want the darkness within themselves. Where the gift becomes when we embrace the darkness as much as we embrace the light within ourselves. Pushing a part away brings a hole, brings a void within ourselves, and we can't be whole if there is part of us missing. But if we embrace that wholeness of ourselves, the good and the challenge, all of a sudden there is no missing piece, and all of a sudden we can now see who we really are. And the medicines, these practices, which already obviously said like this, seems like a pretty easy journey and like a kind of like a good time, which by the way can have great times in between. But some things are very confronting. You are confronted with your ego that wants to control you all the time. That inner voice that tells you you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you're not this, you know what I mean? And so you're confronted with your wholeness, and you will be learning to accept every single part of that. That is when the healing happens, truly happens. See, this eases depression, anxiety, cancer, all of sorts of diseases that we get is an imbalance of something that is within, right? Might have been caused by some trauma of the past, might have been caused by things that we trying to neglect, trying to push away. We're holding on to anger, holding on to resentment, to regret, to guilt. It's all energy, right? It's all energy, and that energy can work for you or against you. Usually a stagnant energy is like water. You put water outside, you can drink water straight away. You can put a water in a bucket, you drink it straight away. You leave water stagnant for a couple of weeks, it's probably not good to drink that, right? Probably flies are in there and larvae and all of that. It's poison now. Same thing with things that happen to us, or for us, I should say. So the moment we allow ourselves to go in there, and I always say, give pain so much love to turn it into happiness. Don't try to cut it out, but love that part of yourself as well, And a shamanic practice, even though, in a short period of time, is very hard to explain. It's a sacred ceremony, it literally is, because if you really have a good practitioner that helps you and guides you through it, it literally can change your life. I have seen and have practiced nowadays for nearly 10 years. I hold my own retreats, and hundreds and hundreds of people from all around the world that came to our retreats. And it's staggering the moment you get out of your way. It's staggering to see how people's life can transform. Now, let me say this. It doesn't happen that way, right? You still will need to go home and implement the things that you're seeing on a journey like that. It's not going to get done for you, right? What will happen is you might be pointed out to look at a place, usually metaphorically, to understand something, and you understand what you really have to do. For me, for example, 2017, I called most of the people that I knew I hurt back when I was still in Europe, that I wasn't the right person. I realized my wife wasn't a bad person. My ex-wife wasn't a bad person. I walked in, she was with another man. Of course, it's not the right thing to do, right? I don't condone that action. Yet I understood that the action happened because I wasn't the man, I wasn't the husband that she was looking for. I was very controlling, very jealous, because I was so insecure. And so 25 years later, I actually called her and apologized. I said, remember me? I apologize for whatever happened back then. And I did that with many, many, many people that I knew I hurt. And I always say life is a preparation to death. In a way, life needs to be lived fully, right? Preparing, because we don't know when death comes. It can be in 50, 100 years, it can be tomorrow. And so we need to be ready that when we arrive to that moment, we can look back at our life and say, you know, my life was maybe challenging at times, but it was well lived. And I said my thank yous and I said my sorries and I pushed through the fears and I tried my best. You know what I mean? And so this is what the journey has been for me. This is the journey that I share with many of the people I work with. My wife has done her own journey. So it proved to me, wow, this really, even though I have seen it with many happening, but she's my wife. She's the only thing I have. We don't have kids. And so she's sacred to me. And I will give everything for her to be happy, but also healthy and strong and fulfilled. And you know, her embracing what has helped me and giving trust to what I'm doing. um you know, the gift was seeing her healthy, going to the tests and saying you're cancer free in a matter of, I think it was about 5 months later. She
Wow.
was diagnosed with breast cancer. And but you know, um major daughter, you know what she did? Something. When she was diagnosed with cancer, she was not in a good place. You can imagine. Her mom passed away with breast cancer, and so she was really scared, really, really scared. And my wife
Mm.
had a very hard upbringing. Her father was very abusive, and so on and so forth. But you know, the first thing that she did as soon as she came home from being told that she had cancer, and after us having a quick chat how we will do this now, and she said, you know, I want to do what you have done. I trust in it. I have seen it work. I want to do that. That is my path. And I remember she went upstairs to the bathroom, to the mirror, and she looked at herself in the mirror and said, Grace, I freaking love you. And she had never done that before. But there was a moment where she accepted herself for who she was. And for a long time, I can tell you that she didn't, because she always felt she missed out on life. She was beaten by her father until she was 30. Um, and she thought she missed out on life. And it was the first time that she really connected with herself. Life humbled her, right? Sometimes, sometimes we don't hear life telling us, hey, make a change,
Mm.
right? The anxiety, the
Yes.
depression is not a death sentence. It's just life telling you, hey, you're okay, you're not broken. Just listen to me. You just need to make a little change in your life.
Mm.
And the moment you accept that and you take responsibility into your hand, right? It's the moment when I was 41 and I was wanted to kill myself. It was a moment of realizing my trauma started when I was little. My sexual abuse was at 11. My wife cheating on me was 24. Why was I still paying at 41?
Mm.
Why? Right? So it was that moment of saying, you know what, yes, that happened to me. And yes, it's a detrimental part of my life. But now I am responsible for the way I feel, for the way I live, for what I want to do. Not that, right? And
Yes.
it's, of course, simple to say, but that was the journey that I needed to go on. And that is what I recommend anyone listening right now. You know, if something is going on in life, that is okay. It is okay. And if something happened to you, for you, back in the days, that is okay. We can't change that. It sucks, I know, but we can't change that. But what we can change, though, is today. The Buddha says, your life today is a reflection of yesterday. Your life tomorrow is a reflection of today. And so, if today we feel sad and depressed and anxious and scared and vulnerable, it's a reflection of yesterday, and that is okay. We can't change the past. But what we can do is we can design and create the future by changing just a little bit what we do every single day. And whatever you do in a positive way, taking care of yourself, accepting who you are, and doing some inner